Hello, everyone. Andy Jacob here with the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. I have a wonderful show today. You know, I reached out to Mr. Sam Swicegood a number of weeks ago, and we got on the call because we always do pre-interview calls. And I said to myself, I could talk to Sam for literally hours and hours and hours. I mean, it's so interesting what Sam is doing. I'm sort of foreshadowing the show today. But Sam is the Chief Executive Officer of GIB Games. And if you want to know about VR and AR, which everybody's talking about, I mean, it's super hot, especially coming through the holiday season. I brought one of the leaders in the field on the show. Sam is a leading expert in VR. His virtual reality, of course, studio GIB Games is a leader. They've got a big announcement coming up. But there's so much to talk about. Sam, welcome to the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here. Absolutely.
It's great. Yeah, it's great to have you. I mean, we've talked, and I said to myself, man, I mean, I have to have Sam on speed dial. He's really a leader in this field. I mean, he knows so much about it. But before we get started, let's do what we always do. Let's start the show off, Sam, by telling us about GIB Games. Let's pull the lens back to 30,000 feet and give us that overview.
Sure. Absolutely. So GIB Games is a virtual reality studio. We specialize in VR and AR. So virtual reality being anything that's in any of the headsets that are available out there, AR being putting content over top of video. So if you've ever used like one of those videos on Facebook where you can look around a room, that's AR. And then if you've ever used like an Oculus or an Index headset, that is VR. So we create that kind of content, the kind of things that's very immersive with oral audio and 3D, where you can really feel like you are immersed in the environment. That's what we do. And we do that. We do exclusively VR and AR content, games, stuff for businesses like showrooms, really anything that you can imagine. We can put together into an environment that people can play in.
Yeah, I love it so much, Sam. Of course, you've now have a new trailer, for an upcoming VR title called the Callisto. And I want to talk about that momentarily. But before we do, let's pull the lens back even further for the people watching the show. A lot of people now have had the headsets on. A lot of people understand what's going on with AR. For those people that really haven't experienced the headsets of VR yet, let's just sort of give a high level of what it's all about and how they can start experiencing that virtual reality.
VR is really accessible today. It's a lot more accessible in the last couple of years than it has been for about the last decade. But a VR headset, kind of in its standard, is you have a headset that has lenses on the inside that are able to take the processor that's here that has a screen, and it transforms that into video that you can see, and it's the image is slightly different for each eye, so that it renders in 3D, so you can really feel depth. And then some headsets, like the Oculus Rift, the one I just had there, it has a microphone that's inside. It has headphones that are inside the band of the headset, and it means that when you're moving around the world, if there's something making noise, it will actually like change where it is depending on how your head is tilting. It becomes a really immersive experience. Anything from sitting in a movie theater to watching a movie to actually standing in a 3D world where you can really feel like you can reach out and touch the things in front of you. They also have various types of controllers like this one that usually have various types of grab functions, which lets you pick up and move objects in the world just like you would, a physical object in the world. And the Index controllers even track your fingers so that you can make very complex movements with your hands. I've seen people create VR environments where you can literally play the piano in VR, tracking your fingers.
Wow, it's so interesting. There's so many applications for VR and, of course, AR. And one thing that just caught my attention when we were talking, of course, we want to get into your new trailer because it looks so exciting. But one thing when we were talking that really got me excited, thinking about the future and sort of the evolution of what VR and AR is going to be able to do, was a recent conversation you had with someone that was wheelchair bound. And what's going on in terms of this AR and VR opportunity helping people that have not been able to move around the world, or maybe have some type of some challenge, being in a wheelchair, or even, let's say, autistic challenge or something like that, that this can be a great boon for their world and their life.
VR allows for such a great expansion of accessibility. That's one of the reasons why I started the company, was because of my exploration of using VR for accessibility. There was a gentleman that I met on a social platform on VR that would be dancing around. I thought there are trackers that let you kind of track like your feet and hip movement, and he would dance around. A very, very personable guy. And I had asked him, how long he had those trackers. And what he explained to me was that actually he didn't have trackers at all. He was paralyzed from the chest down, and that he was able to manipulate his avatar using an Xbox accessibility controller. And that in doing that, he was able to spend his time in VR. He told me, I've spent 20 years in a bed, and then I spent the last several years anywhere I want to be. And it really expanded my view of what VR can do. Another really important one that we've been talking with people about now is, because I said the index controllers, they can track your fingers. You have a really big community of deaf individuals that are able to communicate with American Sign Language. And maybe in their life, they might have 2 or 3 people that they can communicate with ASL. They could go into video chats and do ASL with other people. But VR allows these people to get together and have conversations in a physical space, utilizing their hands, their bodies to be able to communicate. And it has completely expanded their social circle in ways that were just never possible before.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And of course, when we think about GIB Game, we're thinking that perhaps you're an independent sort of studio, but the type of quality that you put out, especially now with this newest trailer that's coming out on VR, I believe it's the Callisto, is really sort of different than what an independent studio typically puts out. I mean, this is it. I mean, this is something that's fantastic. I mean, it looks like, it's a multi-billion-dollar studio putting this out. So congratulations. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, we are an independent studio, but we've always strived to be the level of quality that you would see from a AAA studio. It's kind of hard to believe, but outside of ports from like desktop games, there are very, very few AAA titles in the VR space. Maybe the only one I can think of off the top of my head is Half-Life Alyx by Valve. And so we wanted to kind of follow in their footsteps and push the limits of what you can do in VR. If you imagine for a headset, you're rendering, a lot of data, but you have to render it twice for each screen. So you have to really optimize what you do. You have to make sure that you're not rendering a lot of shapes and a lot of particles so that it's really smooth, because when it gets laggy, you might have someone with motion sickness. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to make new ways to render things on the screen, new ways to do, reflections and lighting that's really optimized, but looks absolutely gorgeous. And with the help of some studios that we work with that create special custom shaders for VR, we're able to do some really awesome things with the Callisto and make really immersive, beautiful sci-fi environments that you really just don't see in other independent studios at all.
Yeah, it's so awesome. Let's talk about this trailer, because something that's very interesting is, when we think about VR, an important component, of course, are the voice actors. And in this particular sort of release of this new trailer of this upcoming VR title, along with the game footage, of course, you've brought in some main voice actors, including the veteran, video game voice actor, John St. John. So let's talk about that, because that's a fascinating approach to putting this trailer out to get everybody excited about it as well.
Yeah, audio in VR is a really important thing that you have to consider. I'm a big fan. I mentioned Half-Life Alyx. I'm a huge fan of Valve and the way that they create worlds. And part of that is that they have very immersive audio systems. So the way that they handle the environment that you're in is incredibly important. So when we were approaching voice and we were approaching, how we want the player to feel that they're immersed in this environment as they're playing this inspector that is investigating a murder on one of Jupiter's moons, we wanted to have those voices be very real and very raw. And so we've reached out to various voice actors. Sherman Christensen is a fantastic voice actor that does a lot of sci-fi independent things. John McPhee is a professor at American International College and is a veteran stage voice actor. And then John St. John, who I've known him for a while, and I had an opportunity to pitch the idea to him. He was all on board with it. And John St. John, even outside of being the voice of Duke Nukem, he has done so many other really powerful voices, and his radio experience made him perfect to play this CEO type kind of scummy, corrupt character that has this endless confidence. And listening to that when you're in the game and you hear this guy Phil Crow that's like talking to you about I'm really glad that guy's dead. It sends chills down your spine. So I'm really happy that our audio team not only found really great voice actors to do the work, but then also did all the work on the audio to make it clear and crisp and really immerse you in the environment.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I mean, of course, you're known, Sam, and your team is known for high fidelity graphics and very futuristic settings, that really catches the people's eyes and, of course, their ears as well. But when we think about it, Sam, when you're starting to build something like you just released, this new trailer for this upcoming VR title, how does it start? I mean, does it start in your mind, Sam? Do you say to yourself, well, I've got this idea, maybe I jot down some ideas, I go through a process. What's the process to take it from your brain into the point where you can actually release a trailer and then get it into the VR sort of system?
The first thing we do is we try and focus on what the mood is going to be. Our first trailer was really kind of intense and very rock music, and even people said, this sounds like this is going to be an action game. And we actually had to revisit it. And we said, this isn't really an action game. There's not stuff to fight. There's not like enemies. It's more of a mystery solving thing. So when we were focusing on this, which is our second trailer, we wanted to really get that mood of mystery and depth and that kind of solving feeling that you get when you solve a puzzle. And so we found some really great music that fit that mood. We found the lines in the game that really amplified that feeling. The idea of people that are preventing you from finding the clues, or those people that are in your way, and then bringing in John St. John with some of his really iconic lines in the game. We were able to kind of put together a really good picture of what it feels like to play this game. It's not your standard action game where you're going to be shooting a gun and killing enemies. You're going to be opening doors and unlocking grates and finding clues to be able to put together a picture of what happened the night this guy was killed and how it happened, who did it, where, and how.
Yeah, I love it. It sounds so compelling. I mean, I want to run out and get into the VR and put that on right away. And of course, you make the games, I believe, using Unity 3D engine. And, you're known for, using highly optimized shaders, really to meet the highest levels of performance required really in today's VR world. So let's talk about that. What's this commitment that your company has toward using the best of the best to make the best possible games available?
We have a really big advantage here at GIB Games because we're an entirely remote company. We can hire anyone from anywhere. We don't have to worry about who's in the 50-mile radius and who we can relocate. People are able to use their own home studios. Our designers are able to build what they need using their own homes, and that really was a result of pandemic. And the result of that we have is that we have people that are able to really focus on building high quality things. These shaders that we're building are made to have the most amount of data in them at the lowest cost. So when you're building something, you want to figure out how reflective it is, what color it is, what shape it is. And we try to put all of that data into kind of one texture so that when you look at a room, you're not having to draw all of these objects all at once. You really can kind of draw once and then be done. And because of that, it makes it so that you're not over processing on your graphics card. You're not overtaxing your computer to run it. And you're really just able to see the environment really just kind of all at once. And it makes it very smooth. And what we want to do is push VR more in that direction. We want to make it so that more independent developers can create environments like this. So even though these are things that we're building for us, these are also things we're going to be sharing with the VR development community, because the VR community can only survive if we're all working together and all creating content. So it's definitely great for us if we continue to share what we do and the innovations we make in the VR world with other VR developers.
Yeah, it's so powerful. This sharing amongst the developers is really unique and different. And it's a way that everybody elevates each other to really provide the best possible experience. And it's really propelling VR along. One thing I know about you, Sam, and what you've done at the company, of course, is, you recently premiered, the Callisto at the Game Developer Expo in Columbus, Ohio. You won an award there. I mean, that's super cool in audio and sound design. Let's talk about that. How important is it to sort of premiere your games at the various expos around the world?
Oh, it's so important. And when dealing with VR, one of the things that we run into is that it is a very new space. So when we do things that are new and innovative, we don't know how people are going to react to that. So the ability to have people come and play a demo of the game and look at the things that we've done that are new, then it lets us, ditch it or keep it, find the things that really work and highlight those things, and then get rid of the things that don't really work. In audio and sound design, the reason why we got an honorable mention at the Game Developers Expo for that was we built a system that was focused on audio triggering other audio. So when you're building a game and you're dealing with audio, normally you'll have some kind of event that triggers an audio, and then another event will trigger an audio. And that wasn't exact enough for us. If we wanted to have some kind of audio happen and then have that trigger another bit of audio, we wanted to be able to do that and make things more dynamic. The best example of this is there's a scene in the game where you walk into kind of a large computer room with a server farm. And most games you would think of when you walk in, they would have some kind of looping audio of maybe like whirs and beeps and boops. But we don't do that. So we've got these little audio listeners all around the room. And this one's going to say, all right, I want to find out whether or not anything around me has recently made this beeping, booping sound. No one's done that in the last 10 seconds. All right, I want to make a beeping, booping sound. And each of these audios gets to control what it is doing independently. And it makes standing in that room feel so dynamic. You're not listening to the same sound looping over and over. You're never really going to hear the same combination of noises in any period in that room. And it just feels so immersive. You really feel like you're there. And we can create any kind of audio source that can trigger any other audio in the game. It turns the entire audio system into its own event system. And it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
Wow, it sounds so remarkable. And of course, people are hearing this. I'm sure they're going to want to wish list this. I think you're slated for a late spring release. Where can they wish list this? Where can they get on the sort of list to get to be, the person that gets to play this full game completely when it's released?
You can wish list this on Steam right now. It's going to be available for all major headsets, including the Quest 2. If you go to Steam and you put in Callisto VR, it's going to pop up there, and you can just add your name to it. And if you go to GIBGames.com, you can also get our newsletter and get some information about when new updates are going to come out. We regularly are updating demos for people to be able to play. And I really hope people do. I've the feedback that we've gotten on it from people that have played the demo so far has been absolutely remarkable. And I'm very excited to see what the community thinks about what we're building and what it looks like and how far we're able to push that envelope.
Yeah, it's going to be so exciting. Now, before we go, Sam, I know you've only cut out a certain amount of time, but I want to talk about GIB Games, and then I want to talk about your entrepreneurial journey. I mean, you really founded GIB Games, during the COVID-19 pandemic. It's a completely remote gaming studio, which I love so much. And you've got developers and artists really working all across the United States remotely. I'm not sure if they're working across the world remotely, but what's that been like, sort of founding that business during this time and then, producing, of course, such impactful things that people can get involved with, and so many VR things that are really going to be cutting edge out there in the VR world?
It's a very interesting experience. I've done some remote work before, and I think that a lot of people with freelance background are very familiar with kind of that remote work pipeline. My background is mostly in marketing and development, and I had worked at a couple of game studios and a couple of different marketing places. And one of the things I discovered particularly in working in indie game studios is how much gets wasted sometimes when you have a building. And pandemic showed us a lot of really empty buildings where people were ending up working remotely. And so me and my other founders, we kind of made a big list of what do we actually need to run. And one of those things was not a building. My other founders, one's in Colorado, one's in Alabama. And so we said, if we don't have a building and we don't have any kind of overhead from that, we can focus on hiring people. We can pay a little bit higher wages. We can focus on quality content. And then for meetings, we just have virtual meetings. Either we'll meet, we use Discord a lot, which is very popular with gaming studios and gamers. And then we also meet in VR. We actually we will have meetings around a virtual conference table, and we can look around and talk to everybody. And it's very much like being in a physical space. We had our holiday party inside a virtual apartment that was really big and had lots of games, and we had a whole lot of people that are on our team all there interacting. It was really very much like having a holiday party in real life, only it didn't cost us a thing.
Yeah, that is so fun and so interesting. I wish I would have been invited. Next year, I want to get invited and get my VR set on and enjoy it with you, because it sounds so interesting. Now, one thing about you, Sam, is I look at you as sort of being a zeitgeist, someone that's sort of forward thinking all the time. You're thinking about what's going on in the future, not just today. So I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball. Where does VR go? I mean, what's the future look like? Are things going to be embedded in our brains? Are we going to have glasses? I mean, what's the future look like?
It's interesting. It's a big conversation among VR developers when we talk about what's commonly referred to as the metaverse. And a lot of people, when they hear the word metaverse, they're either thinking of Meta, the Facebook company Meta, or they're thinking of that it's some kind of single program that you can log into like the Matrix. But the reality of the metaverse is it's going to be a collection of different programs that do different things. We're going to have social programs like a VR chat. We're going to have more professional focused VR programs like AltSpace made by Microsoft. And as headsets become lighter, more lightweight, and we're able to interact more for longer periods of time without fatigue, we're going to be seeing more and more of VR being a place where people can do all kinds of interactions, professional and personal. And then eventually, I genuinely feel we're going to be able to draw over top of glasses and turn AR and VR into the same thing, where we'll be able to put on a pair of glasses and have VR environments, or put things into our environment where I could sit at my desk and I could have things sitting on my desk that I have, maybe digital items I've purchased, or maybe I can look at my friend who's purchased a digital outfit and it'll draw right over top of it. I think that the VR and AR space is going to become very seamless related to our lives, and we'll be able to really just communicate and transform the way that people connect with each other. Imagine if you meet someone for the first time and you look at them and they have some public information they've shared with you about who they are. And I can look at you and be like, I've just learned a bunch of things about you, and all I had to do was look at you.
Sam, that's so interesting, and it's so fascinating what's happening with VR, and of course, what you're doing at GIB Games. For the entrepreneurs watching the show, let's talk about it a little bit, because we have some younger entrepreneurs watching the show, and they're doing startup mode as well, and they're figuring things out. And in business, you hit potholes, you hit some walls that perhaps you can't get through, you freeze in the frame. What advice can you give to some other entrepreneurs or younger entrepreneurs that are facing some tough times in their business that you've learned along the way at GIB Games and throughout your career as this leading sort of VR expert?
I think that making yourself very approachable so that you can communicate with new entrepreneurs is very important. And at the same time, reaching out to people that are in your community. A lot of cities, like I'm in Cincinnati, so we have the Hamilton County Development Center that's nearby here that is just filled with everyone from venture capitalists to other entrepreneurs that are ready and willing to share advice. And if you can reach out to those people, if you're able to find those resources, they're there and they're not going to find you. A lot of the time, and I did this too, when I was first starting out as an entrepreneur, I thought that a lot of these opportunities would find me, that if I made myself out there enough, someone would reach out to me and say, hey, I have an opportunity. But you have to search for it. And they're not always going to be immediately visible. You've got to do the research on who you're talking to. You've got to do the research in, the results that they have had, where they've been in their experience. Find out if it matches with what you're doing. So it definitely takes work, and it's more than just existing. I mentioned I have a marketing background, so a lot of marketing is visibility. And for an entrepreneur, it's very much marketing yourself and your business. So in doing that, it's more than just making yourself visible to the community. It is reaching out and finding those different places that you can connect with that give strength to you and that you can then give strength back to them.
Yeah, I love it so much. And for the entrepreneurs watching the show, I mean, Sam just gave you a Harvard MBA right there in 3 minutes. So rewind what he just said. I mean, that makes all the sense in the world. We all think that people are going to find us. But the truth of it is, we need to find them. We need to reach out. We need to be active in the community and make sure that people know our story. And that's why, doing things in your community and in your business community are so important. Now, let's talk a little bit about, Sam, this newest release a little bit more, because I want to get into sort of the entrepreneurial journey with regard to the Callisto. Okay. How long does something like that take to build? What percent of the Callisto is finished now, aiming toward this spring release? And then how long is the actual game? When someone goes in, they buy the game and they go in and they play the game, how long does it take to play?
So Callisto, it started off as a kind of a two-person project. Me and John's one of my founders. We were trying to think of different ideas for VR that would be what we call low burn, that like we could do them kind of in our spare time. Both of us had jobs at that time and it was going to work out really well. And then due to pandemic, I lost my full-time job. And so it became my full-time environment. And so as GIB Games grew, when I founded GIB Games, we started to realize that we could expand on the idea. So Callisto, we started concepting it early last year. And now here we are. Most of the game is done. We've built the majority of the puzzle systems that allow us to kind of drag and drop events. And so because of that, the majority of the puzzles in the game are already done. They're already polished. We're iterating through them. And at this point, we're just adding more puzzles and more voice acting and just expanding the world. We could put the game out, today and have it be playable, but we want to really have a lot of depth to it. And we're adding extra characters and extra things to explore because we have the ability to do that. And those frameworks are already in place that kind of make it so that both me and my level designers can all go in. And if we want to make a puzzle on the fly or tweak a puzzle on the fly, we can do that. We just kind of move nodes around on it and it's done. It also lets us do a lot of play testing right now, where we can have people that are demoing the game, find out those things that really work. And like I said, when we were doing things for Game Developers Expo, we can really highlight the things that people really enjoy and then pull back on the things that people don't. One good example is because we're focusing on puzzles that are hard to do on a flat screen game, but very satisfying to do in VR. One of them is there's a laser and you have a mirror. And there are laser mirror games in video games all the time. But in this way, you get to physically hold the mirror and physically reflect the laser into a target. And it's incredibly satisfying when you hit that little tiny dot and the thing blows up, because it's really touched those immersion parts of your brain that tells you I'm here and I'm holding an object and I physically interacted with my environment.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I know I'm keeping you over, but I have so many other questions. I'm definitely going to have to bring you back on the show.
I could talk to you all day. I swear I could.
I love it. I know we said that you could probably talk 30 days about this or 300 days about this, let alone 30 minutes. When you're having some people go in and test the game, when they're going through it, how does it work? Do they see something and they stop in the middle of the game and they say, hey guys, hey Sam, they're talking in the game. Hey, this thing over here, you might want to change that, or that thing didn't, sync up, or that thing didn't resonate for me, or do they wait till they're done with sort of the demo to give you the feedback, or can they give you the feedback loop right when they're in the game testing it during your testing process?
A little of both. Having people that are some people will talk about what they're doing, and they'll kind of give me a stream of consciousness. Some people don't, and I'll really let the player kind of decide which one they want to do. One of the things that's so interesting is, yes, we do send out surveys, but we get a lot of data straight when they're playing. Because you're in VR and VR kind of tracks your body position, it has to in order to be able to track where your eyes are. We're able to get data about how somebody's sitting, where their hands are. So we can tell where someone's looking while they're playing the game. So if someone is looking at something, for a while, something has attracted their attention, we can actually see that data and we can see where our players are looking. We can go back and say, who looked at the switch that does the puzzle? Did they ignore the door that they're supposed to go through? And if so, do we need to light that door up or change where that door is? The fact that we can grab data straight from the VR headset and turn that into action that we can then change our world is something that is very, very new to VR. So very new to the game development space without having like very expensive camera rigs to do that. And we can just pull it straight while they're playing. It's really great. And then we can take all that data and we can find averages. We can find what stuff works kind of as an overall group and what stuff doesn't. So it's a lot of statistics and data that we can analyze, but it's very valuable data.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So once the game is released and somebody's playing, let's say on Oculus or something like that, and does Oculus system give you an opportunity to also get this feedback loop, to get this data? So even after it's released, you can make changes to the game based on what's happening with the data with the users, or once you've released it, is that it and you can't make changes anymore?
I don't really think that there is a way to do that easily without kind of having a program that would be sending us data of where they're standing. And in game development, this is for me. I genuinely think that there needs to be kind of a separation there. So for us, when the game goes out, we'll have to rely on things like playthroughs on YouTube and Twitch to be able to figure out what's working for people. But I we're going to try and get it as polished and as clean as we possibly can beforehand so that we don't have to try and rely on anything like that. There's the possibility of maybe putting in something that allows people to opt in to sharing data. And we might do that in the future, but actually we don't really have any plans to do that because we're very confident in the gameplay loop that we've created and the way that people are reacting. But yeah, that's great. Definitely a thing for the future.
Yeah, I love it, Sam. When you mention something where there's lasers and then there's somebody in the game holding a mirror and they're bouncing the lasers around, just for the audience, how long does it take to program something that intricate and that complex?
It sort of depends. Like that one's kind of interesting because we had to sort of create a new type of rendering for this laser and the way that it would bounce. So it took us about a week. We had a couple of people work on it. It took us about a week to do. And then we have our puzzle framework that lets you trigger events and trigger audios and such. So for the laser, once we had the laser put together, then all we had to do is have that laser plug back into that trigger system and it was done. So if we were building it from scratch without any of this framework, it might have taken a couple of weeks to get that right. But because we have all of that already built, it took a couple of days.
That's great. I mean, Sam, you've built a great team. You've got people that are working with you from the jump start, some talented people. What you're doing at GIB Games is so interesting. And we're going to bring you back on the show. We're going to slice out a couple hours. I mean, this is going to be one of those long interviews because I have so many more questions about VR. I'm so excited about the space and, of course, what you're doing in the space with your newest trailer for the upcoming VR title, of course, the Callisto. I love that so much, and it looks like it's so fun, and there's so many interesting, unique things in it. You've got these, world famous voiceover actors that are involved with the game. You've got the mirror with the lasers and all kinds of new things that people probably haven't even seen before. So this is going to be absolutely amazing. We're going to watch the premiere come out, and of course, for those people that want to pre-order it and get on the list, we'll put the link below the interview. But this has been fantastic. Your entrepreneurial journey, Sam, is awesome. Of course, you said you took a sort of a pothole during the pandemic where you moved on from a job, and then you said to yourself, there has to be a better way with VR. You opened up your own business, GIB Games. You got together with some other experts, and here you are. I mean, you just released this award-winning trailer, the Callisto. So this has been a great interview, Sam. I can't wait to get you back on the show. And thank you so much for coming on the show. I mean, for people that want to learn more, reach out to Sam. Like he said, the VR community, it's people that elevate each other and talk to each other, and everybody wants to improve. And the only way you can improve is by talking to other experts that have the same passion that you have. So, Sam, thank you so much for coming on the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today. This has been fantastic.
I really appreciate it. And I'm really looking forward to be able to talk to you about this again. I could talk about VR and AR for, until I ran out of breath, I tell you, because there's so much that is available to be developed. It's such an innovative space. There's so much room for developers to really grow and do unique things. And I'm really excited about what the future of VR has for everyone.